I have three sisters, and each of my sisters has a nativity set in their homes. One of them has a nativity set from Jerusalem, one has my mother's nativity set, and one has one that was a gift to her and to her family. But one of my sisters keeps the nativity set up all year round. No matter what day you go to visit her, in her dining room, on that table in the dining room, is the nativity set all set up. For the longest time, I was curious about it, and for the longest time, I wouldn't raise the question. But finally, one day, in a moment of weakness, I raised the question. I said, "Why is your nativity set out all year round?" And she chuckled, and she said, "I guess you thought I was lazy." And I said, "No." And then she went on to tell me that she thought there was no better way of bringing religious education into her home than by leaving the nativity set up. She said it was a constant way of sharing with her children the fact that our God came and lived among us as Jesus Christ. And she said it was a constant reminder to her of God's presence in the midst of their family. Needless to say, I was very impressed. This really wasn't far from the idea that Francis of Assisi had. It was Francis of Assisi who gave us the first creche. Francis of Assisi worked with the poor, and he knew that they had heard the story over and over again about the birth of Christ, but he wasn't sure they were understanding what they were hearing. And so he brought together all the pieces of that story, and he did that in the form of a creche, in the form of a nativity scene. He wanted it to be crystal clear to them that Christ was no better off than they were, that Christ was no different than they were, and that his life was very similar to their lives. He was born in a stable. He was surrounded by his parents as well as by animals, and it was the shepherds who came first to pay him homage. And Francis always felt that it had a lasting effect and a lasting impact upon his people. St. John Paul II was the first of our popes who put a nativity set out in St. Peter's Square. There never had been one before the 80s. And here it is, the seat of Christendom. But it was John Paul II's idea, let's put one out in St. Peter's Square so that the pilgrims who come might have that same experience that the people in Francis's day had, that they could see very clearly what the story tells us, who Christ is. And so at St. Peter's, of course, it is a much grander presentation of the birth of Christ. And it's done by different villages in different regions throughout Italy each and every year. And each and every year prior to December 24th, it's cloaked in curtains. It's like the size of a stage. It's cloaked in curtains, so it wouldn't be revealed to the people until after midnight Mass at St. Peter's. Well, now we have Pope Francis. And Pope Francis also believes in the power of the nativity set in terms of communicating a message, the message that our salvation has occurred and that it has occurred through the birth of this child. But Pope Francis, like my sister, sees it as important that as many people as possible sees this nativity set. So December 8th, he had the nativity set put up, and he had it opened up so people could see it, and people could talk about it, and people could reflect on it. As I said, each and every year, that presentation is different at St. Peter's. And this year, it's even more different in the fact that the people who put this creche together also added poor people from our world to the creche. They added people who live on the periphery, people who live on the edges of society, because they wanted that to be a reminder to everyone that Christ continues to come for all of us, that Christ continues to come for the poor in a special way. And one of the figures even has a man who's looking to Christ, but he's kneeling before a poor person to acknowledge Christ's connection to the poor, Christ's connection, and the connection of salvation for all persons. In Assisi, the site of the first creche, they've also done something different this year. In Assisi, they have the Holy Family in a boat. And it's a boat that was used by people coming from North Africa to Lampedusa in Italy. And that's that island off the coast of Italy where many refugees first arrive. And so in Assisi, they put the Holy Family in that boat, and it's one of the real boats. They brought it up from that area so that it could represent a contemporary reminder that Mary and Joseph were traveling. They were taking part in a great census. They were not that different from the people we see on the nightly news and on the front page of our papers every day. People who were traveling, people who were on a journey, people who were displaced, people looking for a home. So it's a very interesting reminder of how close the birth of Christ parallels the situation in our current world. At Christmas, we celebrate the birth of Christ's Son. And it's a birth that we know opens for us all sorts of possibilities, and it contains all sorts of promises. One of the promises is the promise of life eternal. He comes among us as our brother. And what we're called to do each and every day is to make every day a Christmas. Each and every day bring this Christ child to others, to be a source of joy and a source of hope to other people. In September, we had that beautiful weekend when Pope Francis was with us. During the entire time, all of us here in the city felt a new joy and renewed hope that things could be different. The Holy Father's presence broke down walls. People were warmer to each other. People cared a bit more for each other. People extended themselves and went out of their way. And that's really what we're called to do every day of the year, not just when the Holy Father comes. We know that feeling occurs again each and every Christmas, when you can walk out your front door and you can greet anyone, whether you know them or don't know them, and to wish them a happy, to wish them a Merry Christmas, to wish them the best. Every year it happens. And it's that same feeling that we felt when the Holy Father was with us. The call is to bring that feeling, bring that reality to the world each and every day. That is the same joy or hope that fills us again each and every Christmas when we greet strangers, hold doors, and give gifts, and remember the poor. How quick we are to extend ourselves to the poor at Christmas time. How quick we are to give part of what we have to those who have not. It's not just the call of Christmas, but it's the call of each and every day of the year. Every day we're called to share the joy of Christmas, the hope of Christmas, the love of Christmas, for every day Christ is with us. My sister now has a grandson who is 2 years old, and he has a play school nativity set. And so he has all the characters of the nativity set, and he moves them all around within the nativity. He knows who the shepherds are, he knows who Joseph is, he knows who Mary and the child are, but he knows clearly that the child is the one who doesn't get moved. While he moves all those other figures around, he knows that's the center. And so then he brings his school bus, he brings his fire engine, he brings pictures of his mother and his family to place them close to the child. This Christmas, who do we want to bring and place close to the child? Thank you.